Welcome to the podcast for Westside, a Jesus Church. We hope this teaching encourages and empowers you to love, learn, and live the way of Jesus.
Ecclesiastes 3. I'll read a little bit, and then I'll talk for a little bit longer. Verse 16, Ecclesiastes chapter 3. Moreover, I saw under the sun that in the place of justice, even there was wickedness. And in the place of righteousness, even there was wickedness. I said in my heart, God will judge the righteous and the wicked, for there is a time for every matter and for every work. I said in my heart with regard to the children of man, that God is testing them, that they may see that they themselves are but beasts. For what happens to the children of man and what happens to the beasts is the same. As one dies, so dies the other. They all have the same breath, and man has no advantage over the beasts, for all is vanity. All go to one place. All are from the dust, and to the dust all return. Who knows whether the spirit of man goes upward and the spirit of the beast goes down into the earth? So I saw that there is nothing better than that a man should rejoice in his work, for that is his lot. And who can bring him to see what will be after him? Fascinating text. If I would have read that without telling you to turn to the Bible, would you have thought that came from the Bible? Because it's plagued with all these doubts, right? He's a doubter. The writer of Ecclesiastes is a doubter, and he's probing doubt. And so Dom started a great study last week. Has a great book. Read it. Now, Dom is an apologetic master. Like, he reads the Greek New Testament. I'm different. I read the Message Bible. Okay? So it's going to be a little different today than Dom, all right? Dom reads books with lots of footnotes. You know what my favorite book is? I have 5 kids. My favorite book is The Giving Tree. Who's read The Giving Tree? If you have not read it, read it. Read that book. It's the most philosophically deep book I've ever read. It's awesome. Okay? So I'm going to be a little bit different than Dom. I'm going to tell you my story, how I got probed into doubt, how the church responded to me, and then I'm going to talk not science and philosophy. I think Dom does that so well in his book, and he'll continue to do that with you guys. I'm going to talk pastorally. What I've seen can often lead to doubt is the relationships that we have, that they can promote real doubt. All right, so that's what I'm going to do. My story. Raised in the church, godly mom, totally gone dad. Never a part of my life. By about the 7th grade, I kind of check out of the church, go south. By my sophomore summer, I rededicate my life to the Lord, and junior year, I am on fire at Oregon State University. I'm the on fire guy. Like, if you remember back to the 90s, Visa had this statement. Visa, it's everywhere you want to be, right? Remember that? I'm dating myself really bad here. I had a shirt that looked like a Visa card, but it said, Jesus, he's everywhere you want to be. I'm that guy, right? I'm the guy. So I'm in it. I'm in Campus Crusades for Christ. I'm in Bible studies, prayer groups, you name it. Spring term, junior year, I'm trying to figure out what classes to take. And I see this class. It just says Philosophy 390, Jesus Seminar. And I'm like, yeah, look at that. I can get college credit and learn about Jesus. Sign me up. Man, this is heaven. So I take this class. The professor's name was Marcus Borg. And week 1, he's like, I am a Christian just like you. I'm like, yeah. All I brought to my class there was my Bible. That's all I brought. Bring my Bible there, right? But by about the 3rd week, he starts dropping F-bombs. I'm like, wow, that's an interesting Christian professor. It's getting hot. This doesn't feel like heaven anymore. All right? What Marcus Borg was, he was a part of this group that was called the Jesus Seminar. And it was around in the 1980s and 90s. And what they did was 100 liberal scholars, and they would get together, and they would take a small passage of Jesus' words, they would debate it, and then they would vote on whether they believed Jesus said those words or not. If they believed he said it, they'd put in a red marble. If they believed maybe he said it, a pink marble. If they believed, he didn't say it, then they would put in a gray marble. And if they absolutely said, no way he would say that, a black marble. And they were huge in the 80s and 90s. He was on the cover of Time Magazine, CNN, big time. So here I am in this class with Marcus Borg. I'm very, very, very big about my faith, but I've got no depth to it. A mile wide, an inch deep. And so he began to probe and just crush my faith. So he would say something that I knew Jesus did not say, or Jesus said something different. I'd open my Bible like John 10, I'd be like, well, in John 10, Jesus says this. This is what he'd do to me. Matt, we know that that passage was actually written in Aramaic. Matt, do you know Aramaic? I'm like, yeah, he's on my intramural basketball team. Love the dude, okay? Right? Well, in Aramaic, we know the words there that they didn't actually exist until the 2nd century, so there's no way Jesus would have said that. I'm like, oh, right? This goes on and on and on. And systematically, over the course of this term, he dismantled my faith in Jesus, the Bible, and the resurrection. And so I get out of this class, and I'm exactly what Don would say. I was paralyzed by that doubt. And Don nailed it last week in how the church responded to me. So I go to the church, the only source that I knew. And in the 1990s, I hope we're better now, I would go in there and be like, I am doubting here. And it was like the response to me was this: oh, we believe in here. We don't doubt in here. We have faith in here. So because of that response, I just started church hopping. Like, maybe there's a church that can help me. And I'd go to the experiential church, and I'm sitting next to a guy who's saying, praise the Lord. He's crying. He's on his face, and I'm just sitting there. What's wrong with me? And then I go to the next church, and it's a knowledge church, and there's this gal who's sitting next to me, and she is writing notes so furiously that her pencil's on fire. And I don't know if it's friction or the anointing, but I'm like, I ain't getting nothing here. And what I found in church during that time was this: when I talked to leaders, I'd get 2 answers. First, faith. Matt, you just got to have faith. I understand this side of it, what they were trying to say, but man, that was so deflating to me. Because I'm like, the problem is my faith. If I could manufacture more faith, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. That is the problem. I don't have faith. I can't magically make faith happen. So it's just deflating to me. I went and talked to one pastor, and he prayed for me, and he said this: Matt, there's a black box in your heart, and until you let God into it, you're never going to get help. And so I'm like, well, I'm damaged goods then. I don't know how to open up a black box. I don't know how to do this. And then the next thing, if it wasn't faith, it was a formula. You need to read your Bible more. You need to pray more. You need to speak in tongues. You need to be filled with the Holy Spirit. You need to serve, right? Just here's the formula. And so I would sometimes like, okay, fine. Tell me how much more of the Bible I need to read. 2 more chapters a day? 4 more chapters? 8 chapters? Because there was a time that my doubt was so strong, I locked myself in a cabin, and in 24 hours, I read the whole New Testament. Is that it? What is it? By the way, if you find a formula for doubt, please tell me, because we'll convert the world then. I don't think one exists. So I started getting these answers from people. What I actually need is what Dom said last week. What I needed was someone to tell me this: Matt, doubt is not an attack from an enemy. Doubt is an invitation to seek answers. Let's walk this thing out. Let's talk this thing. Instead, I was treated like, oh, not around me, right? Not around me. It was a very hard time in my life. Now, though, this side of Philosophy 390, this side of that kind of 3-year area, I'm so glad to talk to doubters. Like, I invite them at my church. If you're an atheist, if you're an agnostic, if you are a doubter, here is my email. Let's meet, let's talk. Because I enjoy it now, right? I enjoy the science side of it. I enjoy the philosophy side of it. That's awesome. But those are things that are covered by Dong. Here's what I want to try to cover. Maybe the pastoral side of what can bring doubt. And what I've seen in talking with people is this. Doubt relationally comes from 3 sources. Our relationship with God, our relationship with people, and our relationship with ourselves. And that's what I want to talk about. And I think you actually see those in this text that we read this morning. So first, doubt can come from our relationship with God. Look at verse 16. Moreover, I saw under the sun that in the place of justice, where I expected to find justice and goodness, and in that place, there was wickedness. And in the place of righteousness, there was wickedness. What's the author of Ecclesiastes lamenting here? God, where are you? I look around the world, I see what's happening, I tune into the news, I see my neighborhood, I see my own life, and I say, God, where are you? Why aren't you doing something about this? This should not be that way. You ever felt that way? There's a term for that. It's called the hiddenness of God. And it's been a struggle for centuries. God, why don't you appear? Why don't you make things right? Where are you? Even the disciples of Jesus felt this. They walked and talked with Jesus for 3.5 years. At the end of his public ministry, he's meeting with them, and one of the disciples raises his hand, John 14:8, and says, if you would just show us the Father, that's all we need. Ever felt that way? God, if you would just show yourself to me, I'd have the faith I need. They even felt it. Hiddenness of God. It put me through a massive crisis of faith. And now, it was 20 years ago, now that I look at myself when it put me through that, I'm just like, I was so silly. But in the moment, it was huge. Here's what happened to me. I decided to serve the Lord down in an orphanage in Mexico. So I go down to this place, it's called Carmen Cerdán. It still exists to this day. And it's a place that took orphans that were severely handicapped. That once an orphan came into Carmen Cerdán, it would never be adopted out. You would care for that baby or that child all the way through its entire life. So I get down there, and my job was not to care for the new babies. My job was, they called it the boys, the big boys. But they weren't big boys. They were full-grown men. And my job was this: wake them up in the morning, put their clothes on, brush their teeth, take them out, feed them, clean them up, and then change their diapers. Ever change a diaper on a full-grown man? We call it the poop apocalypse. Like, it was insane. It made having little babies and changing their diapers, I'm like, that's so cute. Let me see that thing. I'll take care of that. Made me a better dad than I would have been. Like, no problem. Right? So I'm down there. I'm studying the Word. I'm serving Jesus. I'm doing all this. And there came this point where I ran out of ink in my pens. And so I decided to say this. I decided to pray this. I just decided to believe. I'm just going to believe you. I'm going to pray that you talk to my fiance back in Southern Oregon. She's now my wife. And she was sending me care packages once a month or once every couple of weeks and sometimes once a week, that you speak to her, and she puts in the next package a 3-pack of blue, medium point, Bic pens. Right? You ever done something like that? Feels silly now, but man, it was important to me. And I prayed, and I believed, and I thought, I'm serving. God, you're just going to do this for me. So Thursdays is when the packages all come from the States. I get up there, there's a package from my fiance, open it up, guess what? No pens. I'm thinking, well, Lord, okay, I get it. I prayed I prayed after she sent this package. You didn't want to magically make them appear in the package. I get it, okay, no problem. Next week. So I wait. Next Thursday rolls around. There's no Bic pens. I'm like, really? One more week, God. One more week. Next week, guess what? No pens. And I don't know how to explain it today. I don't know how the enemy does this, but man, it crushed my faith. Here I am serving you. I just got through changing an adult man's diaper, and you can't do something as simple as speak to my fiance's heart and have her include some pens? Are you kidding me? And it went on for a number of days until I was in my bunkhouse, sulking. And it's a bunkhouse I shared with 10 other men. A few of them believed showering was optional. It's not optional, man. So I'm in there just stewing on this, when in came this guy, and he's like, hey, man, I got a bunch of extra pens. Does anybody want them? I was like, are they medium, blue, Bics? Right? We have these crises where we have a certain expectation of how we believe God is supposed to work and how he's supposed to answer us and what he's supposed to do. And when he doesn't, we can be like, are you kidding me? Like when we want God's direction, we want to go out our back door and our dog to be like, hey, hold on. Word from the Lord for you? Yeah! Written in the sky, right? That's what we want. And when that does not happen, God's hiddenness can be like, are you kidding? What helped me so dramatically during one of these really dark times of my life was a message by Tim Keller. And it was a message that he began to talk about Elisha in the city of Dothan. And Elisha's in the city of Dothan. This army comes down during the night, surrounds his house to kill him, right? It's ISIS at the doorstep. So in the morning, his servant Gehazi goes out the front door, gets the paper, looks up. Wow, black flags are flying, machine guns are pointing. He's like, runs inside to Elisha, who's in the back drinking his coffee. He's like, Elisha, you would not believe it. There's a massive army outside to kill you. And Elisha just looks at Gehazi and says, there's more with us than there is with them. You know the story. And Gehazi's like, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1,000, 1,500. Dude, what are you drinking? Is that mushroom coffee? Come on. Right? And what does Elisha say? He prays, and all around, fiery chariots show up. And the army is made blind. And I'm like, that's what I want. That's exactly what I need. I need fiery chariots. I need a sign from you, God. That's exactly what I need. But that was only half of Tim Keller's message. Because then he said this. He said that city of Dothan appears again in the Bible. It's 1,000 years before. And it's a whole different situation. It's this young man named Joseph, who's his dad's favorite, who's begun to become kind of spoiled and just growing crooked in his life, given a coat of many colors, thinks he's better than his brothers, tells these dreams that he shouldn't be telling, does all this stuff. And so he goes out one day to meet his brothers in the fields, and they hate him. And so they grab him, and they say, we're going to kill you, and they throw him into a pit in Dothan. And what do you think Joseph did in that pit? Prayed for fiery chariots. God, save me. God, you've given me these dreams. God, you're going to use me. God, save me. Show up. Do something here. Does God show up? Nope. Do fiery chariots come? Nope. He is sold into slavery. As a slave, he is falsely accused of rape. He's imprisoned unfairly, and he's forgotten about in prison. And this goes on for at least 20 years. God doesn't show up. That's the hiddenness of God. But Keller goes on to say, it was the fact that God did not show up that changed the trajectory that Joseph was on to become a spoiled brat of a kid to then instead become the number 2 ruler of the most powerful empire on earth. And if God had showed up in that pit, it would have continued to propagate his brokenness. That sometimes God's hiddenness is the very catalyst for our destiny. And we have to come to a place. I love what the writer of Ecclesiastes says in verse 17. So I said in my heart, God will. Like there is a process that you have to come to in your own maturation where you begin to say, God, you're hidden now, but I'm going to say in my heart, you will. And maybe, just maybe, the reason you're not showing up in fiery chariots for me right now is because you have something better. And this is to mature me and to grow me. I look back at Philosophy 390, and it was painful, and it was dark, and it was doubtful, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because my faith was a mile wide and an inch deep. And it took that class and the subsequent darkness to get me to a point where I admit it. Because I had the shirt, man. You kidding me? I got the shirt. I'm on fire here. Yeah, but you've got zeal without knowledge. And you better start plugging in a little bit. It was the very catalyst that changed me. So sometimes know this. The hiddenness of God can be the best thing that happened to you. And our job is to trust, tell our hearts, God will, and I'll wait. God will, and I'll wait. The second problem in relationships that can lead to doubt in us is you guys. It's the church, right? This is one of the dilemmas of being a human. Is anyone in here, have you ever felt lonely? Have you ever felt like you wished you had better relationships with people? That you wish you were deeper, that there was a better community around you? Ever felt that way? If you have, you're not weird and you're not broken, you're normal. Because you're not a tree, you're not a rock, you're a human. And what you see in the Bible is this. Way back in the beginning, it's not a sin thing. God creates perfection, Eden, makes Adam, great relationship with him. There's no sin in the way. And what does God say when Adam is in the garden by himself? It's not good for you to be alone, buddy. I'm going to create somebody. I'm going to create a friend for you that you need that, right? Before sin, before problems, all that, okay? But what is the problem with people? People. Are they not? The problem with people is them. They're the problem. I was so reminded of that this summer. So my son Myron, he was 4 at the time, was taking swim lessons, and I was driving him on a Wednesday. His swim lessons are on Thursday. As we're driving, he said this to me. He said, Dad, you have not been to one of my swim lessons this year. I was like, oh, no. I said, okay, fine, bud. Do you want me to go with you tomorrow to swim lessons? This is what he said to me. Yeah, I don't care. I was like, oh, no. You are so good, man. You are just hitting the strings just right. I said, I will take you tomorrow, all right? So I took him the next day. I'm sitting there. And there's these bleachers at the pool where about 20 of us are sitting in these bleachers. There's this fence, and then there are these Chase lounge chairs in front of the fence, and then the pools. So we're up. Most of us are up in the shade in these bleachers. But there's this grandpa and this grandma that are in front of the fence on these Chase lounge chairs. And I'm sitting there and we're just watching it, enjoying it, when this little girl, very big voice, big life, big kind of girl, maybe 6, 7 years old, comes up to her grandpa, starts talking to grandpa, makes grandpa laugh. Grandpa starts laughing, and the girl looks at him, puts her hands on her hips and says, Grandpa, you have yellow teeth. In a giant voice. So all of us are up on the stands. We're like looking like, okay, all right. Woo! And just keeps going on. Like, Grandpa, what happened to your teeth? They are so yellow. Right? Just like a girl can. And we're like, oh. Right? Then she looks over at the grandma who's like 10 feet away. Grandma! She's asleep. Grandma, have you seen Grandpa's yellow teeth? And then looks back at Grandpa. Grandpa, what did you do to get yellow teeth? And I can just see the guy's ears turning red, right? He's just like, oh. So he tries to make a joke about it. He's like, well, my teeth are yellow because I eat yellow snow. Like, that did not help, man. Oh, bro, that was just the worst thing. And she just goes, no, it is not. Your teeth are yellow because you don't brush your teeth. That's why. Right? Then there's this little boy, he's like walking around. He's the grandson, brother of this girl. Come here. He comes over. Hey, look how yellow Grandpa's teeth are. this little boy climbs up in Grandpa's lap, is like poking in his mouth, like, oh, wow, look how yellow that one is, right? You're like, oh, yeesh. 4 minutes of this, like just torture. And at one point, like the girl whirls around and looks at all of us up in the stands, and everyone did this. Do not look at my teeth, right? Oh. So we think it's over. Everyone's like, oh, whew, jeez. When the grandpa, like, I just see him like, oh. He calls over a third child that's somehow related to him. Come here. And pulls out some money and says, hey, would you go over to the snack shack and get me an ice cream? Yellow teeth girl hears this. What? Grandpa, you cannot have ice cream. Your teeth are yellow. You need to go to the dentist. No ice cream for you. All right? Oh, man. And the final thing that happened, the little boy, he goes like dancing around the fence and begins to kind of dance in front of us, holding a little toy, and he's singing this song. Grandpa has yellow teeth, yellow teeth, yellow teeth. Grandpa has yellow teeth. The problem with people? People, right? Man. And we laugh at this, and it's funny. You know why? Because we're not Grandpa. That's why. Grandpa did not think it was funny. Grandpa couldn't get out of there fast enough. The problem with people is people. That's what it is. It's why if you read this text, the author's like, we're like beasts. We're no different than animals. We're dirty. We're just dirt, and we're going back to dirt, right? That's what you see over and over. We're dirty. And my guess is this. All of us have been hurt in church. That we come to this community and we think it'll be different here. People won't be beastly. They won't be dirty. They won't be yellow teeth girl. And so we come here with this high expectation of relationships with people. And then you start finding inside the walls of church, there's hypocrites. There's people that gossip. There's people that are cruel. There's people that say words to you that they don't know how bad they hurt you. And you think, I thought it was going to be different there. I thought it'd be different than high school, or different than college, or different than my job, or different than my marriage, or different than my family. And I come here, and I find yellow teeth girls here. Oh. And then you begin to doubt, like, is this place any different? I'm like, oh, right? That's what I found. What helped me immensely on this thing was a quote by Miroslav Volf. He's a Harvard professor. He knows about being hurt by people. He was part of he was in Slobodan Milosevic's ethnic cleanses in Serbia. He knows about really, really bad things. And he said this, and you can get the exact quote if you want. Just Google Forgiveness Flounders by Miroslav Volf. But he says this, forgiveness flounders when I exclude my enemy from the community of humans, and I exclude myself from the community of sinners. Man, that was I have that written out at home, and I look at it all the time when people hurt me. Because you know what? I say, I've done this. I've been the yellow teeth girl. That's what I've done. We demonize people and make them something. They're horrible, this and that. And then what we do is we give a lot of grace to ourselves. Well, you know, it's because this happened, or we have an excuse. Miroslav Volf says, we got to do the opposite. If you keep reading that quote, we got to do the exact opposite. Give a lot more grace to other people and be very different with ourselves, right? We come to church, and what I know about church is this. It's not full of finished projects, beautiful masterpieces that are to be put up on the mantle. I come to church and I know this now. There's a bunch of unfinished projects, a bunch of broken people here. That's what it is. And I need to learn to give so much more grace to people. It makes it so much easier. My wife is brilliant at this. I'll give you an example that just happened recently. You ever go to pull in a parking spot, and one of the people that parked way over the white line so you can't get in? Okay, what do you think in that moment when you're like, I got, and it's not? What do you think in that moment? Here's what my wife will say. Oh, it must have been somebody who parked before made them park like that. I'm like, no, he's a moron, right? Which one of those is better? My wife just gets grace. No, it's because of, it's so much grace. Listen, I've been a pastor for a long time. People are broken. We come here to come to the healer. That's why we're here. And people are going to disappoint you. That's a human strength. I can guarantee someone will disappoint you in church, but it's okay. Because over and over what the Bible says is this: there's only one hero, and it's not staff, and it's not pastors, it's Jesus alone. He's the one hero. He's the one that will not disappoint. He's the one we look to. And what we do, what I do, what we're supposed to do is keep giving grace and mercy 7 times 70 or 77 times, whatever translation you want. That's how much forgiveness we're supposed to get. Like if we could get one simple thing from Jesus, when he's on the cross, unfairly being beaten, he says this: Father, forgive them because they don't know what they're doing. You want good relationships with people? Do that. Get that one thing. Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. And maybe some crest whitening strips too, just in case, right? People will disappoint you. Jesus is our hero. Expect it. Stop doing the Miroslav Volf thing where we exclude them from humanity and exclude ourselves from sinners. Switch those things. And there's a third area of doubt that I found. Not just with the hiddenness of God or the beastliness of people. It's me. Me, I disappoint myself. And you actually see that tension in this chapter, right? Verses 16 through 22 it's like existential, like man's dirty and beastly, and he, who knows if he goes to heaven or not. Like it's all that, like really? It's this tension there about our beastly animal nature. But if you back up a couple of verses to Ecclesiastes 3 verse 11, it's one of the most profound verses I think in the Bible, because it says this: but God has put eternity in man's heart. Right? We're beastly and we're dirty, but on the other side, there's eternity in their heart. How big is eternity? That's massive. Like the capacity of a human is massive. And yet, we're beastly and dirty. Why would the author of Ecclesiastes be wrestling with this dichotomy? Let me suggest, because he knew the Bible, that if you read the creation account, it's very unique. God speaks and there's animals. God speaks and there's the sun, right? But when it comes to you and me, what does God do? Chapter 2. He forms us out of dirt, right? He forms the man out of dirt, and then he breathes divine breath into the dirt, and it becomes a living soul, right? Dirt plus the divine. You and I are divine dirt bags. That's what we are. We're divine dirt bags. And some people need to be reminded they're divine. You are an image bearer of God. Are you kidding me? Don't treat yourself that way. And other people that are a little haughty, they need to be reminded, yeah, you're a dirt bag. Just depends on the situation, right? There's pastoral counseling 101, I'm telling you. We feel it like, yeah, I've got this capacity, and yet I'm a dirt bag. You see it in the 2 big pillars of American culture today. They're pillar number 1, be all that you can be. The self-help machine that every single week just chugs on. Billions of dollars are spent on you and me becoming better people, right? I fall into it. I'm a bullet journaling fool this year because I read a book and I like the guy and I'm like, I want to be like him. He bullet journals, then me too, right? Because I want to be all that I can be. Capacity, eternity, largeness. But on the other side, just as important of a pillar is I just got to be me. I just got to be me. I need to act authentically. Now, if you spend a little bit of time thinking about those two things, they cannot be friends because it's hitting on that same tension of divine dirtbags, eternity in their heart, but beastly. It's that same tension in all of us. We have that tension. We want to be something, but yet we lack, and we feel it, and we get disappointed in ourselves. Here's how it works in church. Here's how that doubt works in church. We get to church, people come to church. And I call them, they're Instagrammable when they come to church, right? They're fixed up, they look nice, they come in the door, you're like, hey, how are you doing? Excellent, man. Praise Jesus, I am doing so well. The truth is, you fought like rock stars with your family on the way here. You said you were gonna turn them around the car like 14 times. Your wife and you are barely talking right now. You sit with each other only because of the marriage vow, but if it was anything else, you'd be across this hall from each other. That's the truth, but when you come in, praise God, man, Instagrammable, yeah, right? So then what happens to me is this. I see that, and then I think, man, you're so godly. Like you actually read the book of Leviticus. You are so godly. Oh, I am such a bum, right? Here's the truth. I think we're both bums. That's the truth. Moms, you come in and you see some mom and her kids are like little ducklings behind her. Just single file line. They say yes, man. They say yes, sir. They call you Mr. and Mrs. And you're like, I am such a terrible mom. Look at that. You know what I think the truth is? You're both terrible moms. Truthfully, the broken side of us, like we don't let that come out enough. We want to be Instagrammable too often, right? And so what that does, it feeds this tension in me that I keep thinking, oh, if I could just be like them. But I think here's the truth. I think the long game of Christianity is this. God's the faithful one. Philippians 1 verse 6. That he's the one that will be faithful to complete the work in me. And if I would just stop keeping score, stop comparing myself to other people, and simply enjoy his faithfulness and this call, this echo, this song, this music that keeps coming to me through grace and through praise, through whatever route, that guess what, Matt? You are a fabulous failure. Yeah, I am. You are a divine dirtbag. Yes, that's what I am. Matt, you are full, but there's more. Matt, you're at the top, but there's another step. Like that, if I'll keep that tension in tune, then what happens is I stop putting all this pressure on myself. I stop this be all you can be Instagrammable thing, and I start just enjoying this journey with Jesus. Like he's the one I'm following. I'm not following you. I'm not following that guy. I'm not following that guy. I'm following Jesus. And when I get that tension right, man, you just enjoy the journey. It's brilliant. It's wonderful. It's good. And I start being amazed at Jesus alone. It's how the Bible ends, by the way. Revelation is being amazed at the Lion and the Lamb because he has a plan. And he is the faithful one. He's the one that's going to complete the work and complete the work in me and you. And I start having all this self-doubt and self-worry because I'm full of him. Matt, you're perfect and you're being perfected. Matt, you're a privileged project and I will not give up on you until you are complete. Oh, it's so powerful. So powerful. And that's why I love how you guys every single week come to the table. That's what the table tells us. It tells us that you are invited. It doesn't matter what happened yesterday. You're invited to a meal with the King. You're wanted at the table for a meal with the King. How brilliant is that?